I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Krysta, I'm the daughter.
And together we are
Family Plot.
Very nice, very nice. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. First and foremost, there's Patreon. There's 2 levels, $1 and $3. If you donate, you get cool stuff. It's a monthly thing, and you can pause it if you need to. So yay for Patreon. If you can't do a monthly donation, you can always do a one-time whole dollar amount through Buy Me a Coffee. If you enjoy the show, please share it on social media.
Share it with family.
With friends.
Share it with everyone.
We're struggling today.
It's okay. If you don't enjoy the show, please
keep it to yourself. That one was better.
That was good.
You can't say something nice. Don't say nothing at all.
If you can't say something nice, punch someone till they cry.
No.
Oh, okay. So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Marilyn Monroe.
Well, this episode, we actually go back to meet Norma Jean Mortenson, a beautiful girl who became the queen of the golden age of Hollywood. Connected to presidents and great sportsmen. Yep, this episode we go all girl power as we discuss Marilyn Monroe. But first, Krysta not only has a corner, but today we're catching up with Krysta.
It's not just any corner, it's Krysta's corner.
Hello, creatures. Welcome back to the corner.
Hi, Krysta. How are you?
I'm getting sick, and I'm going back to school tomorrow. I'm doing as good as that can be.
Yes. You had a couple extra days off this week, snow days. Thank you, snow. Where were you for Christmas? That's what I want to know.
Screw it up. What else, baby? Yeah,
well,
you had things to talk about.
I do have things to talk about. I just dropped my headphones on the floor. That's
Why
wonderful.
did you do that?
It was an accident.
Maybe you should pick them up.
I'm trying to.
No, you're trying to tow them up. That's totally different than picking them up.
That's not totally different.
Well, no, it is. You pick things up with your hands.
Unless you don't have hands, and then you could be one of those weird, cool people that does things with their feet.
One of those amazing people who does things with their feet. I don't think they're weird. I think they're awesome.
They are pretty awesome.
I agree. You went back to school for one day, and then Snowmageddon happened.
I've been doing a little bit of research on some animals.
Sick animals. Like cool, sick in a good way.
Cool animals.
There you go.
Like what kind of animals?
These 2 birds are particular. They are the harpy eagle.
Ooh.
And a bearded vulture.
Cool.
This is a bearded vulture.
Oh, very nice.
They're little.
Wow. He's very bright and showy.
He's very bright and showy. He's very red. And then harpy eagles. This is a harpy eagle.
I like harpy eagles.
Wow, those are cool looking. Those are sick.
Fun fact about harpy eagles, they are the largest eagles.
Cool.
So they're huge.
Yeah, sounds like.
This is one on a human. Yeah, they're big. They're big birds.
That's a big feathered baby.
And fun fact about bearded vultures.
Yeah.
Their feathers are actually pure white. They just rub them in I think it's iron-enriched soil to make them look more intimidating to hunters of their species.
To their predators.
Yeah. To their predators.
So they start out white and they go, no, I don't look cool enough. I gotta go throw on some makeup and be boss.
Yeah, well, kinda.
Yeah.
They do it more because it's an instinct, you know.
Gotcha.
Well, most people's instincts. That's why they keep them in and not out.
Wow.
Nice, babe.
Haha. Very funny. I'm
Thanks,
laughing.
babe.
Hey, if I don't do dad jokes, who will? It is a family podcast.
You're right.
You're making a lot of work for me.
I'm not trying to yawn.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to yawn.
Right.
You just are.
Yeah. That stuff's contagious, too. You gotta be careful about that nonsense.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I can't help it.
It's all right, baby girl. What else you got going on?
I thought you had a whole thing planned out.
Well, she had birds to talk about.
I had birds to talk about. I love birds.
Oh. Are you on season 7 of Supernatural yet?
No.
She's been busy hanging out with one of her buds.
Yeah, I've been busy hanging out with one of my buds.
I see.
My buddy Roonies.
I
have made it to episode 12 of season 6.
How many episodes are in season 6?
23.
23, I think.
Why do you know that?
Because 23 is what most seasons are.
You are so smart. I did not even know that was a thing.
No, Hun, I worked in an industry adjacent to the film industry for quite a while.
Yeah.
I knew guys who were on series, and they would tell me, I'm on 6 of the 23 episodes this season, or whatever.
Nice.
And sooner or later, I would ask, why is there 20? Because there almost always is.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Good to know.
I guess like Netflix and Hulu, they kind of do their own thing, but most show seasons are
23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good info.
I think this season actually has. I think it's either 23 or like 26 or something. I can't remember. But I mean, I don't know. I went back to school for a little while.
But you've had 2 snow days and your brains are tapioca.
Yeah,
that's true.
Pretty much. Everything hurts. Because I cleaned out our fridge.
You did a great job.
You did an amazing job with our fridge. You, detailed it exquisitely. It was amazing. Right. She pulled the whole thing apart. Anybody who's ever cleaned out a fridge knows. It's you can clean out the fridge and make it okay. She didn't do that. She detailed the fridge. She took everything out, including all of the shelves, all of the drawers, the shelves in the door. She unattached them, scrubbed them all up, scrubbed everything out, got rid of anything that was out of date, got rid of anything that was and then organized it all neatly. It looks so beautiful. You did such a good job.
Not as beautiful as your makeup, but still pretty beautiful. I'm proud of you.
My makeup has been not.
Yes, well, why would you do makeup on a snow day?
Because we like to see her.
Feels pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Of course, she still won't put butterflies or anything on my eyes like I keep asking her to. She just looks at me like I'm silly.
Why are you so mean to Mom?
I want flowers.
I'm not good with colors.
I want flowers and hearts and pastels. I want a whole look. And she's just yeah, no, Mom. Poo on you. I got nothing for you, Mom. Yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I'm creative. Yes, I'm amazing. But no, I don't want to share it with you. Poo on you, Mom.
I never said any of this stuff.
Maybe the people at the old age home will take care of you later in life, but not me. I'm not putting no fancy makeup on you, Mama.
I'm just not good at. I'm not good at putting on like.
That's an
colorful
excuse.
Stuff. I'm not.
You know what they say about excuses?
They're like butts, and we all have
Everybody has
them.
one. They all smell really bad.
Exactly.
Well,
But doesn't everyone?
So, what else are we talking about, Krysta?
The fact that you're flinging around an earring.
Well, I'm not flinging it. I'm just spinning it in a circle.
Exactly.
Wow.
The fact that something just fell on the floor. A pill just fell on the floor.
Oh, I didn't realize the lid wasn't on it. That's hilarious. Sorry.
Why are you throwing pills all over the floor?
I don't know.
Too tired.
It's been a really long week, I told you. It's only Wednesday.
We in pain. Ow.
Oh,
my
hi,
goodness.
princess. How about you, Lexi? You got anything to add to Krista's Corner?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring right now.
What do you want to tell the listeners at home? Do you know who Marilyn Monroe is?
No.
No, you don't. She's a pretty blonde lady who was an actress in lots and lots of movies.
She was very pretty.
But she started out as a pretty brunette, just like you. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was also. We're gonna talk about her. She was also a model, and she also worked really hard during the war. And she had a lot of things that happened in her life. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
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 You want to tell our fam hi or anything? No? Okay, go play.
Bye, kid. Wow.
All right.
How wonderful and amazing.
Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess Chris is done. See, that wasn't so hard, was it?
It was hard.
Okay.
All right.
So before we get into the rest of this episode, a trigger warning is necessary. Anybody at all familiar with Marilyn's life will know that this episode will contain references to both sexual assault and suicide. Please ask for help if you need it.
Absolutely. You matter.
Mm-hmm.
We want you here. You're needed here. You make a difference in someone's life.
So, Marilyn Monroe was born on June 1st, 1926 at Los Angeles General Hospital to Pearl June Baker, also known as Gladys Pearl Baker. Gladys had been married to an abusive man who kidnapped her 2 children and moved with them to Kentucky. So she did good. She didn't go to Kentucky. Pearl was dating a man named Mortenson when Norma Jean was born. So she carried his name for quite a while, Norma Jean Mortenson. But DNA tests have since revealed that she was the daughter of Charles Stanley Gifford, a man that Gladys had an affair with while she was working at a film development company.
Kind of came from an interesting history chain of events, right?
Yeah. Now, while Gladys had not been prepared for Norma Jean's birth, her early life was happy and pretty stable. As a young child, Gladys placed Norma at the home of evangelical Christians, Al and Ida Bolender, in the rural town of Hawthorne, California. Gladys lived there with her daughter until she had to return to LA for work. Still, she saw little Norma on the weekends. When Norma was 7 years old, her mom purchased a small house in Hollywood with a home loan that they shared with a family of lodgers, George and Maud Atkinson and their daughter Nellie. However, tragedy awaited Norma's future. In January of 1934, Gladys Pearl Baker was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. She was immediately put in a rest home and eventually committed to the Metropolitan State Hospital. From that point on, Gladys would be in and out of mental health institutions, having little contact with her daughter. family friend Grace Goddard took control of both Gladys and Norma's affairs from that point on.
Oh, that's rough. That's a rough start. Wow.
Well, it was a good start up until she was about 7, and then
it's just, that's hard. All right. So for the next 16 months, Norma lived with the Atkinsons, where her shyness deepened and she developed a stutter. Many suspect that she was sexually abused around this time. She eventually moved in with Grace and her husband, Edwin Doc Goddard. In 1935, Grace put Norma in an orphanage. While the place was a model institution, Norma felt abandoned. The orphanage staff thought that Norma would be better off with a family, and she was rotated through several foster families. Around this time, Norma would talk about her love of movies and the first glimmers of her aspirations as an actress. Some of my foster families used to send me to the movies to get me out of the house, and I'd sit there all day and way into the night. Up in front there with the screen so big, a little kid all alone, and I loved it. In 1936, Grace would become Norma's legal guardian. However, she wouldn't remove her from the orphanage until 1937. She did not stay with Grace long, however, as Grace's husband, Doc, began to molest her.
Ew.
Poor little girl, my goodness.
From there, Norma went to live with Grace's aunt, Anna Lower, in Sawtell,
That looks right.
California. Norma served on the school paper where she was praised for her writing, but otherwise was mediocre at school, and attended Christian Science services with Anna on Sundays. However, Anna's health problems precluded Norma from staying with her for long, and soon Norma returned to live with Grace in Van Nuys, California.
Perfect.
In 1942, Grace transferred to Van Nuys High School until the company that employed Doc Goddard relocated him to West Virginia. Child Protective Services would not let the Goddards take Norma out of state, so Norma solved this by marrying her 21-year-old next-door neighbor, factory worker James Dougherty.
Dougherty, you're good.
Dougherty.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, what a deal. What a poor girl.
Yeah, I knew Marilyn had been through some stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the level of stuff she had been through.
Right.
And it makes her later life come into kind of sharp focus for me. We here at Family Plot Podcast would like to take a moment to offer condolences to Kate from the Ignorance Was Bliss podcast. She has been in the hospital really essentially since before Christmas, and you just get better soon, and we'll talk to you as soon as we can. Also, condolences go out to Tamara R. Mullins. That one's a bit more personal. She is the mother of my oldest child, and she recently passed away due to after effects of a stroke. Heart goes out to your son and to the Mullins family. Thank you. Monroe, who had dropped out of high school to become a housewife, was by her own admission dying of boredom in the marriage. After her husband joined the Merchant Marines and transferred to the Pacific, Marilyn got a job working at the radio plane company in Van Nuys. While there, she met and was photographed by young David Conover, who was working for Captain Ronald Reagan, who was at the time helming the U.S. Army Air Force's first motion picture unit. Reagan wanted Conover to take pictures of beautiful young women to raise the morale of men fighting in World War II. Conover took several pictures of Norma, but while these first photos were not used, Conover encouraged the young woman to get into modeling. While her deployed husband opposed her career as a model, Norma moved into a place of her own and signed a contract with the Blue Book Modeling Agency in August of 1945. The agency deemed Norma more suited for pinup work than high fashion photography, and Norma did a lot of print ads. To make herself more employable, she straightened her hair and dyed it blonde. The owner of the agency thought Norma was the most ambitious model they had. In 1946, the owner of the company began to represent her for film work. She tested at Paramount, but they passed on the future star. She was given a screen test by Ben Lyon, a 20th Century Fox executive, but the studio head, Daryl Zanuck, was not enthusiastic about her, and he will continue to be a thorn in her side most of his life. Still, he offered her a 6-month contract, if only to keep her away from RKO Pictures. Ben Lyon and Norma came up with her screen name, Marilyn Monroe, partly because Norma reminded Lyon of Broadway star Marilyn Miller, and Monroe because it was Gladys's maiden name.
Mm-hmm.
During that first 6 months, she studied dancing, acting, and the filmmaking process. She was given bit parts in 2 pictures, but eventually the studio did not renew her contract. Still, she got an acting coach and remained working in the movies and theater in a lot of the behind-the-scenes roles. Determined to make it as an actress, she continued studying at the Actors Lab, hung out at producers' office, befriended gossip columnists, and even hung out with the producers themselves. This got her signed to Columbia Pictures, and while she did the movie Ladies of the Chorus, it didn't get her over, but all of that was about to change.
So around this time, she became the protege and love interest of Johnny Hyde, the executive in charge of the William Morris Agency. He sent her to test for several roles, among them the films All About Eve and The Asphalt Jungle. While these were still small parts, they got her noticed. They got her re-signed by 20th Century Fox. Shortly after negotiating this signing, Johnny Hyde passed from a heart attack, and Marilyn was devastated. In 1951, Marilyn appeared in As Young as You Feel, Love Nest, and Let's Make It Legal. Her popularity with audiences was growing too. She was voted Miss Cheesecake of 1951 by Stars and Stripes for being the most preferred pinup girl to the young soldiers serving in Korea. She had brief relationships with director Ella Chasm and Nicholas Ray, and leading men Peter Lawford and Yul Brynner. I didn't know that she dated Yul Brynner. That's kind of cool.
Yep, she dated Yul Brynner at least for a little while.
That's pretty cool. He was one of my big idols. I loved him in The King and I. Oh my goodness. Anyway, and you know that's who Charles Xavier is based off of.
No, I didn't.
Yes.
Was she a bisexual?
Yes, that's when they created Charles Xavier. Yul Brynner was one of their. Or at least I believe I heard that somewhere. I could be wrong. I'm crazy. Anyway, sorry, I got.
And was Marilyn bisexual? By all we know of, probably not. Not unless she hid it very well.
I'm not sure that Ella is a female name. I think that's where you're getting that.
Yeah, it's a director, Elia, and I may have put it down wrong. It's Elia Kazan, I believe. Very famous director for his time.
Oh, he has a very womanly name. I think they thought he was a woman.
I think that's what you thought too. No problem. She even started a relationship with retired baseball star Joe DiMaggio, the biggest sports personality of his day. In 1952, she was the center of a huge scandal as it was revealed that she had posed for a nude calendar in 1949. The studio had found the pictures and thought the best way to confront the scandal was to release the information while stressing that she was broke when she did it. This turned public sympathy her way, and the interest in her movies, where she was now getting top billing, increased. Marilyn was featured on the cover of Life magazine as the talk of Hollywood, and Hedda Hopper, famous gossip columnist of her day, called her a cheesecake queen who became a box office smash. The films Clash by Night, Don't Bother to Knock, and We're Not Married were released around this time to capitalize on this scandal.
Let's take a moment for a word from one of our fellow podcasts. Not sure which it'll be, but so far I'm really liking what we're getting. So let's take a moment and let them tell us all about their show.
First impressions can take only 6 seconds to make, but if you're neurodivergent, those quick judgments about you can be misleading.
Because of most people's ignorance around learning disabilities, people think it means you're intellectually incapable.
I'm not Rain Man. Every autistic person isn't Rain Man.
I thought I was talking to people who understood dyslexia and ADHD, but they did not.
They freaked out and were like, well, if you've got Tourette's, if it's going to be a problem, then we can just fire you and get someone else.
I'm Carolyn Keel, and I host Beyond 6 Seconds, a podcast where neurodivergent people share their lives and advocacy.
One of my goals is making autism not something that's scary.
I really want to help people understand dyspraxia a little bit better.
Get the real life of Tourette syndrome out there. Stop thinking we were nothing but a joke.
Let's shatter misconceptions and celebrate neurodiversity together. Listen at beyond6seconds.net or wherever you get your podcasts.
What do you think, Krysta?
I think that was really cool. I think that was very interesting. I liked that.
Cool. Want to take us back into Norma Jean's story there?
Yes, ma'am. Around this time, either Marilyn's low self-esteem, stage fright, and lack of control over movie shoots made her hard to work with. Either that or some think because the
coquettish
blonde was so easygoing, directors bullied her. Either way, she would show up late on set or not at all. Demand several takes to get the scene right, rely on her acting coaches for guidance, and eventually she began to take
barbiturates,
amphetamines, and alcohol to make herself more relaxed. This would become a problematic addiction for her. Still, 1953 was a big year for Marilyn as she starred in 3 hit movies, becoming 20th Century Fox's most bankable star. That was the year she made Niagara Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which featured the song Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and How to Marry a Millionaire. She was praised for all these roles and had her hand and footprints preserved in cement. Okay, that's kind of weird. In front of Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Dude, that's a thing. That's what they do. That's how you know you've made it really big in Hollywood. They preserve your hand and footprints in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater. Like, everybody's there.
John Wayne, Marilyn. I got to see quite a few. I was actually in Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest honors that somebody who works in Hollywood can actually get.
That and a star in the Walk of Fame, which is right across the street.
Yep.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yep.
Marilyn also made her television debut on the Jack Benny Show, playing Jack Benny's dream girl, literally. Also, Marilyn appeared on the cover and the centerfold of the very first issue of Playboy. The cover picture had been snapped as she led a parade, while the centerfold was one of her 1949 photo shoot pictures. Marilyn did not approve of this, but they used pictures in the public domain at that time. Still, it increased her popularity that year.
Yeah, and that is so sad to me. Like, That nobody even approached Marilyn on that. They just used this old
Like,
picture.
here, we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
Hey, we're just gonna,
That's pretty awful,
take your thing. But there wasn't any such thing as, like, copyright or anything at the time, so.
So conflicts with the studio began to crop up about this time. Her contract was penned in 1950, and she was paid far less than leading actors and actresses of her time. Her contract did not give her any choice of the film she acted in, nor any creative control on set. Part of this was the work of Darrell B. Zanuck, who had, remember me saying this guy? Here he is again. Had a strong dislike of Marilyn, and part of it was the order of the studio head, who did not want 20th Century Fox to do any serious films. Marilyn was ordered to star in The Girl in the Pink Tights. She refused and was suspended by Zanuck. Marilyn countered this negative publicity by marrying Joe DiMaggio, going to Paso Robles, California, to stay in her lawyer's hunting lodge before going on to Japan with Joe. Joe would begin training Japanese baseball teams while Marilyn performed USO shows featuring the songs and dances from her movies in front of 60,000 U.S. soldiers. When she returned home, Photoplay magazine awarded her the title of Most Loved Movie Queen, and under intense public pressure, Fox renegotiated Marilyn's contract. She was to get a $100,000 bonus, and new contract and a starring role in the adaptation of the smash hit musical, The 7-Year Itch. In 1954, River of No Return was released, a movie popular with audiences, but a movie that Monroe characterized as a Z-grade Western, where the acting was second to the scenery and the cinescope process. Her first movie after the suspension was There's No Business Like Show Business, a film the studio made her do for dropping The Girl in Pink Tights. The movie did poorly with both audiences and critics, calling Monroe's performance in the film vulgar. In the late September of 1954, she began filming The 7-Year Itch, about a woman who stars in her neighbor's fantasies. As a publicity stunt, they filmed a scene where Marilyn is standing on a grate and the air from the subway blows up her dress on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. They filmed the scene for several hours with over 2,000 spectators looking on. This became one of her most iconic scenes, and the news surrounding it went international. It also ended her marriage with Joe DiMaggio, who did not want his wife to do the scene and was physically abusive to her. She filed for divorce just 9 months later.
Off another one. Poor girl, cannot get a happy ending.
Yeah, she's looking harder for a happy ending than Richard Gere.
Hey, I understand looking for a happy ending. Woof.
Do you think we should have a word from our sponsors, babe?
I do.
Hey, honey.
Yes, dear.
I feel sponsored.
Yay.
Also, you have your kitty cat.
Huh?
He looks so happy to be with you.
Yeah, well, he does like laying on me for
does.
whatever reason.
All right. So Marilyn actually opened her own studio in New York, Marilyn Monroe Productions, a move that had been credited with breaking the studio monopoly in Hollywood. She implied heavily that she was no longer under contract to Fox, as they had not paid her the promised bonus or renegotiated her contract. The press lambasted Marilyn as a dumb blonde for this move, and it was lambasted on Broadway through the musical Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, a musical about a dumb actress who opens a movie studio. They even hired a Marilyn look-alike in Jane Mansfield to star in the show. Still, Marilyn busied herself in acting and began to date actor Marlon Brando, as well as a playwright, Arthur Miller. Fox Studios, who by that time had renegotiated her contract, paying her $400,000 for 4 films over the next 7 years and allowing her to make one film through Marilyn Marilyn Monroe productions for everyone she had made for Fox. It even gave her the right to pick her movie, director, and cinematographer. However, the studio urged her to end her relationship with Arthur Miller as he was being investigated by the FBI and the House Un-American Activities Committee, but Monroe refused, causing the FBI to open a file about Marilyn Monroe as well.
Holy squirrels.
Yep.
Okay. In 1956, Marilyn touted on her win over Fox and was favorably praised in the press as a shrewd businesswoman, among other things. However, the press was less complimentary about her relationship to Arthur Miller, with no less a newsman than Walter Winchell?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Saying America's favorite blonde bombshell film star is now the darling of the left wing
Intelligentsia.
Okay. Still, Marilyn had big dreams. She filmed Bus Stop, a movie about a Western showgirl whose dreams of fame become complicated when a naive cowboy falls in love with her. She learned an Ozark accent for the film and intentionally sang and danced with less talent than she usually showed. She had chosen a Broadway director, Joshua Logan, to direct the film, a man who initially doubted Monroe's talent, but by the end of the production, his opinion of her rose drastically, saying that she blended comedy and drama as well as Charlie Chaplin.
Mm-hmm.
Bus Stop was a big hit lauded by critics who raved that Marilyn could act.
Mm-hmm.
Around this time, she married Arthur Miller, a marriage many considered a mismatch. Even Variety mocked the union with the headline, "Egghead marries Hourglass." Holy
right
heck. From there, she did her first M&P production, The Prince and the Showgirl, based on a play. She got the play's original star, Laurence Olivier.
Olivier.
Wait, what?
Olivier.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
To perform opposite her, but the two almost immediately began to quarrel and sabotage each other. Still, The Prince and the Showgirl got made and produced, where it did little for American audiences, but he was a huge success in Europe. Marilyn had converted to Judaism with her marriage to Arthur Miller, something that offended certain people. The nation of Egypt immediately banned her movies due to this.
The Egyptians apparently at that time didn't like Jews.
In 1959, she began filming Some Like It Hot with Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. She antagonized her co-workers and the director, sabotaged scenes so she could act in them the way she wanted, demanded multiple retakes, which prompted Tony Curtis to say kissing Marilyn was like kissing Hitler because of how many retakes she demanded. Still, the movie was both a critical and commercial hit. In 1960, though, she began to suffer a reversal of fortunes. She starred in the movie Let's Make Love, which, despite a very public affair with her co-star that was used in the film's promotional footage, did poorly and was poorly received. Finally, she performed in The Misfits, a role created for her by husband Arthur Miller. Marilyn was deep into her barbiturate addiction, and her makeup often had to be applied while she was asleep. She was forced to take a week off to detox at the hospital before returning to the set to finish the movie. She also did not care for the way Arthur Miller rewrote scenes the night before they shot them. Finally, the film was finished and the movie was released, another failure that was a critical and commercial bomb. Though in the time since its filming, both the film and Marilyn herself have been rethought with praise for both. Her next film was Something's Got to Give. However, sinusitis sidelined her while the studio pressured her to return filming. On May 19th, she took a break to sing Happy Birthday to President John F. Kennedy at his Madison Square Garden early birthday gala. She wore a beige dress with rhinestones that gave her a nude look, something that she had actually calculated. This irritated the studio as it was something they did not want her to do. Upon returning to California, she publicly filmed a scene where she swam nude in a pool for Something's Got to Give, marking the first time a famous actress posed nude while still at the height of her fame. However, afterwards, she was again sick for several days, so the studio fired her and sued her for $750,000 in damages. They were worried about both the rising costs of the film as well as the movie Cleopatra, which was suffering similar problems due to Elizabeth Taylor's issues. Yeah. And so, however, when they went to replace Monroe with Lee Remick, the co-star Dean Martin refused to work on the film with anyone but Marilyn Monroe. The movie was canceled, and the studio put out the word that Monroe was mentally disturbed.
Well, aren't they just delightful? So Monroe actually engaged in several attempts to revamp her image during magazine interviews and photo shoots. She also moved to 12305 5th Helena Drive in the Brentwood section of Los Angeles. On August 4th, 1962, her housekeeper was staying over when she noticed light coming from Marilyn's room. She attempted to enter, but the door was locked. She called Marilyn's psychologist, who came over and helped her to open the door, only to discover Marilyn deceased. Her regular doctor was contacted, as well as the police. There were several empty pill bottles beside her bed, and she had enough barbiturates in her system to kill her many times over. Because of this, suicide was initially ruled out, though later the LA coroner and a suicide prevention team ruled her cause of death to be most likely suicide. The news of her death spanned the globe. She was eventually buried in the Crypt 24 in the Corridor of Memories in the Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. And, like most things regarding Marilyn Monroe, thousands of onlookers were on hand, not in attendance. Only a few of her close friends were there for the service.
So, and I know that reads weird coming off, but basically all I was trying to say at that point was that while the service themselves was only a few close friends, they had to close down streets because there were so many fans that they weren't allowed into the cemetery, but they wanted to be as close as they could. And so now let's take a moment for another word from our sponsors. I just want to make sure we've got, because I knew this was going to be a longer episode than some we've done. So I want to make sure we have plenty of room for ads.
Hi.
Hey.
I feel sponsored.
Excellent. Thank you for being sponsored.
Yeah.
So at 8 p.m., and we're discussing now the last moments of her life. At 8 p.m. on the 4th of August, Monroe received a call from Peter Lawford trying to convince her to come to his party. Marilyn alarmed him because she sounded as if she were on drugs and said, "Say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to the president, and say goodbye to yourself because you're such a nice guy," before she hung up. Now, the thing about Peter Lawford is he was friends with the president. It's how she came to do that gig. So he might have even been related to the Kennedys in some distant way.
We know that they're like a huge huge family. So yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, but so they knew each other, which is part of why he wanted her there. In the years since her death, many conspiracy theories have arisen in an attempt to explain the discrepancies of her demise. Such things as JFK or RFK arranging for her death because she had information that would damage their family. Others claim that her housekeeper was in the employ of Lawford, who killed Monroe out of the misguided belief that she had information on the Kennedys. In the end, however, suicide still seems the most likely cause of death. And I only say that because I did not know this at the time, but like suicide prevention at that time wasn't really a phone number. It was a group of people who studied suicides and who dealt with suicide. So they're the ones who looked it over and said, yeah, this really has more of a look than a suicide than a murder. Even though years later, they because of some things that got published, they went and they re-examined it, but they still came up with it probably is a suicide. And Marilyn Monroe went through a lot.
So much.
Like more than I ever knew she went through.
Right.
And, she had her mom as her role model, and her mom wasn't exactly stable when it came to relationships. And Marilyn turned out not to be the same way, to be unstable in her relationships as well. That, she learned that from mom. Mom was a paranoid schizophrenic. I think that Marilyn just never had good self-esteem.
Well, I mean, why would you? Why would you? You never had a dad in your life. Your mom basically abandoned you, and while it was because she was mentally ill, that wasn't something that was supported in the 50s.
Right.
Or the 30s. It wasn't something that there was a stigmatism to it. People didn't live a life once they were diagnosed as being crazy. They got thrown in a home. They got thrown in, a medical facility. Then she got molested over and over again. Everyone who should have been there for her and should have protected her never did. The fact that she went on and she did all of the things that she did, even beyond being bullied, even beyond, having people take advantage of her. Wow.
Yeah.
What a strong person. Yes, she had issues. Yes, she had addiction issues, but she did the best she could. And I really think that she was an amazing lady.
Well, yeah. And one of the things that kept getting thrown at her back at that time is people got very upset with her because she kept bringing her acting coaches on every movie she ever did. And so she'd do a scene and she'd go talk to her acting coaches before she'd go talk to the director. But I think that was to combat her low self-esteem.
Yeah,
her acting coaches would tell her, no, I see this, I see that, I see what you're doing. And the director would say, you dumb blonde, do this.
Right.
And maybe not all of them talked to her that way, but I'm sorry. And maybe not all of them talked to her that way, but enough did that it just...
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, if she wasn't a successful actress, I don't know what she would have done.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing, is that acting for her, like, the one thing she talked about as a kid that she liked, that she remembered, was going to the movies.
Yep.
And so she became, almost literally in some cases, the movies.
Yep, absolutely.
And so I have always loved Marilyn Monroe. I still love Marilyn Monroe. In fact, one of the things that was in the Wild Card series, which was written by the same guy who wrote Game of Thrones. Wild Card series was essentially about an alien virus that gave people superheroes or made them into what was called jokers, just these massive deformations that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Like there was one person, Chrysalis, everybody called her Chris, but her system couldn't handle pressure. Just to walk bruised her feet. And so, and it was that sort of weird kind of jokers. Anyway, but in that series, it's Elizabeth Taylor who dies, and Marilyn winds up doing Cleopatra. So, which goes to show what some of our listeners think, that there's not a show we can do that I can't attach to some historically odd novel.
No, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
You just proven them wrong. They'll find another thing to test you on later.
So, but yeah, overall, I loved Marilyn. I still love Marilyn. I didn't realize how much she'd been through. Like, when people talk about money doesn't buy happiness, she had money. I don't think she was ever happy.
Doesn't sound like it.
I think it's definitely possible that
she got, I feel like she got love where she felt like it was safe. Her fans loved her.
Yeah.
She moved from man to man while it felt like love to her. And then she moved on. She didn't want to hear what anyone else had to say. She decided what she wanted in her life. She had spent so much time as a little girl not having that option, not being able to decide, that as she went further in her life, even though she was using drugs and things to be able to function in the world, I think that she made the best life that she could out of what she had available to her.
Yeah. And Hollywood around this time, not a kind place. Look at Judy Garland.
Yeah.
Judy Garland, who was such a good performer, but the studio heads kept getting onto her about her weight.
Yep.
And she got so, like, she overdosed because the only way she could deal with the constant negativity was drugs. And Marilyn was the same way. And Marilyn wasn't equipped to deal with that because, I mean, she'd never had a good father figure. The guys in her life that might have loved her a little too much.
Yeah.
Here's my thing about the men she dated. I feel like she dated them because she felt unaccepted by everybody else around her, because even when she was with them, she didn't seem happy.
Right.
I'm sure she wasn't. I'm pretty sure what she was trying to do is she was trying to feel loved, because everybody else, she only saw the bad side of things. Like, she saw a couple of good fans, but, like, most of the time, it was all praise to her body and whatever else, because she's an actor. She was a female actor in Hollywood in 19-something.
Yep.
She was appreciated for her looks, not what she did the majority of the time.
And that is true. It wasn't until she did Bus Stop that the critics were like, holy heck, someone stopped the presses. Marilyn Monroe's learned how to act.
Exactly.
She could always act. They just didn't want her to.
She always could. And here's my thing. She dated, it's sort of who she dated reflected on her. I'm not saying she was a bad person. Her partners were the bad people. But here's my thing. They beat her up, which sort of means to me that she beats herself up.
Yep.
Which means to me that she had low self-esteem the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
every right to it,
It's honest.
I mean, if anyone had the right to be completely messed up inside and out, it was definitely her. And no one could have faulted her for ending up in a gutter somewhere, and she didn't. She went out and she made millions of dollars.
She did her best,
you know,
exist, like,
and she went out and she tried to do good things in the world. She tried to create her own movie company. She tried to promote herself. She tried to do the things that she felt like would be important. So I think that she was just an awesome lady.
I think she did what she was...
Did the best that she could do.
I think she did what she was fated to do in life. I think she did what she was put on Earth to do, and I think that she did a good job. And I think that she ended when it was right. It's sad to hear. It most definitely is, and she shouldn't have. There should have been more room for her to live out to her old age. And it's devastating that she overdosed.
It is definitely, it's a hard...
But it's a hard life.
Yeah,
especially when you feel this way in particular. Because, like, you feel like nobody accepts you. You feel like the only reason you're famous is because, you know, people care about how you look.
Mm-hmm.
And you're constantly downing yourself. I mean, at that point, like, you don't have parents. You don't have people you feel like you can trust. Your partners have been absolutely terrible to you. It's sad, but like you have to think about her life, and you have to think about what maybe she was thinking about the whole time.
Absolutely.
Because like she might have been thinking about overdosing for years, and nobody would have known because they don't check on that. What they do check up on is, you know, how she's doing in shows, how she's looking. Like, she went to the hospital, but she never got mental help.
Right.
Because that wasn't possible. She was a woman.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't go like that back then. You're right.
And, you know, I think if she had more time in life, and I think if she did have the support that she needed, she wouldn't have gone goodbye.
If Norma Jean had been an actress in Hollywood today, that she would be on the cover of every magazine. She'd be right up there with some of those big names, like, you know, some of the people that we have definitely seen get out there. And I don't know actresses and actors, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I really feel like she would be one of Hollywood's elite. And not only that, but I also feel like she would have the support for any of her mental issues, for any of the abuse issues. She would be supported for those things.
And, you know, that's more possible, but also you have to remember that, well, that was older in the day of ages. I think is there's still a lot of this going on because there are still a lot of recent suicides from actors, from normal people. They don't have to make it big for this story to stay the same.
That's true.
Because not everybody makes it big, and not everybody lives to a big age. She made it pretty far for how much she went through.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, she was huge. I just think she was scared.
Oh, she was certainly scared. And I'm going to disagree slightly on one of her husbands. Arthur Miller, I think Arthur Miller absolutely loved her.
I do think Arthur Miller loved her. I think
he also had no clue how to support her.
Yeah. And instead he just tried to boss her around, and she was at a point with her life where she was done with that.
Yeah, I definitely think that he was trying to help her, but he didn't know how to help. And I definitely think...
Well, eventually she just sort of stopped communicating with him. And so after he wrote that play for her, that movie for her, he left and he wound up meeting someone else.
And, you know, I get it, because communication and everything, that's important, but you also have to sort of know, like, that it was difficult for her to communicate. And, you know, that's how it is, like, daily.
Mm-hmm.
will always be people who is more difficult for them to communicate. And
Absolutely.
all you can do is stay around and hope that you being around will help as much as possible, even if you can't communicate fully with them. You remind them constantly how much you care. You try to keep doing your best. You do what you know helps.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, I don't know that Arthur Miller could have helped her.
I don't think...
Not at that point in her life, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
I think he was smart enough to see what was coming. He probably made a few attempts to try to divert it. But there comes a point when you're watching someone drive towards a brick wall that you have to look away.
Yep.
Especially if it's someone you care about.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm not saying he's a good guy, I'm not saying he made the right choice. I'm just saying I can kind of understand by that moment of, I can't be here for this.
Yep.
I got to go.
Got you.
I get it. That's totally fine because, like, I don't see it as a good thing that he left, but, like, it's what he had to do. Like, he couldn't stop it. It's not like anyone could have really stopped it. I really wish she would have met some better people at a younger age, and she might have made it a lot farther than she did beforehand. But she didn't really have any of those, like, big meetings with good people.
Because she was beautiful, and she had just this amazing personality that sparkled out of her, even with everything that she lived through.
Even, going through whatever she was going through.
Like, I remember seeing her in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend and 7-Year Itch, and she just was this phenomenal presence on the big screen.
She
really was.
She was phenomenal, and nobody is saying she isn't. I mean...
No, I'm just saying that, with everything that she went through, if she was able to sparkle like that, can you imagine if she had the support that she should have had?
If she had the support she should have had, I mean, I don't know. Good people can come from very bad things.
Sure.
That's not to say good people can't come from good things, but good people know bad experiences the majority of the time because that's how they become better. They learn from their mistake and other people's mistakes, and they sort of come up from that. They come up from drowning, and they try to help others. They try to show what they've learned, and then when they're dragged back down, that's sort of all they can do. They can't stop it because they don't know that much. Nobody ever has that much knowledge about how to pull themselves back up alone, especially not alone. Alone is more difficult than just being there.
Yeah.
And like, she tried to get back up. She tried to get the upper hand, but when all you see is sadness and depression, and you don't have anyone to help you, you don't have any therapy, you don't have anyone to be there for you. The only thing you can do, the only thing you are able to do is sit there and, try your best until you have no spark left and you don't know what to do. That's what she did what she thought was best.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, babe, is that our show?
That is our show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for keeping us in the Good Pod Top 100. Thanks to Bill Barrett, that last name is spelled Behrendt, for our theme music. Bill's a musician. He's also part of the Rusty and Dusty podcast. If you need music for a project or someone to play an event, Bill's your guy. You can reach him at billbarrett@sbcglobal.net. Thanks to Paige Elmore of the Reverie Crime podcast for using her Canva addiction to work with our Krysta and design our logo art. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, Paige.
Also, thanks to Aaron Gnerk of the Big Dumb Fun Show, who continues to promote us locally. Thank you, Aaron. Join our Facebook group and join us next week as we do a very special episode looking into a very young Houdini exposing phony spiritualists in St. Joseph, Missouri, along with our guest, R.J. Jackson.
That's going to be awesome.
Yes, yes. Especially seeing as, according to most people, he didn't start busting spiritualists until 1913. We got it 16 years early.
Well, there you go.
Hey.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.